Hi and welcome to this installment of Excel for Introductory Statistics. In this video, I'm going to talk about measures of center. It's a general term, and I'm going to talk about four specific types of measures of center, and those are the four you see on the screen right now. We have the mean, the median, the mode, and the mid-range. At least one of these four you should have been familiar with before starting this class, and that's the mean. Because in statistics, we use the term mean, but conversationally, that's the same as the word average. So finding the mean means finding the average in statistics. Okay, so we're going to talk about the four measures of center, but before I do so, to give it some context, consider the scenario. Okay, you want to buy a house in the Boston area. Your budget is a selling price of $500,000. So maybe not Boston proper, but maybe one of the surrounding towns. Okay. Now you don't pay the $500,000 up front. Generally, what people normally do is they put a small portion of that down as a down payment, normally between 3 and 20%, and then the rest you pay off as a loan. So let's say you've calculated the monthly payment for a selling price. That's just the price tag on the house. So if the price tag is $500,000, the selling or the monthly payment would stretch you to the absolute limit of your finances. Not a dollar left over to save or spend on recreation. So you would prefer to buy a house for considerably less than $500,000. $450,000, $425,000, something in that range. Right? $500,000 is your absolute max. Now, looking for a house is very time consuming and very stressful. And let's say for this example, every time you look at houses, you have to take time off from work and lose money. Okay, so that's the key. You can't just look at houses whenever you want with no consequences. You have to be strategic. Okay, so now you're working with a real estate agent. Okay, so we've talked about these. Now, this fourth point. You're working with a real estate agent, and your real estate agent tells you about a street where all 12 houses, or this street with 12 houses that are for sale. But the average price of those 12 houses is $525,000. Now, the question, there's plenty of houses for sale all over the area. So, do you take time off from work? Do you lose money from missing work to look at this street with these 12 houses, or do you tell your real estate agent you'd rather look somewhere else in a different location where the houses are more within your budget? Okay, do you look at this street where the average price of the houses for sale is $25,000 over your absolute max, or do you look somewhere else? Right, again, you have to be strategic. So think about this for a moment. We'll come back to this question, but let's move on to sheet 2 where we could do some actual calculations. Okay, so in column A, we have the appraised values, or let's just call those selling prices of those 12 houses on the street. Let's calculate the mean, the median, the mode, and we'll also do the mid-range as well. And determine which of these values most accurately represents the value of an average house on the street. I don't mean the mathematical average. I mean conversationally. Which of these, the mean, the median, the mode, the mid-range, which one most accurately represents this set as a whole? Okay, so we've had some time to start getting used to Excel, and we've actually seen the function for mean in a previous video. That's average. And just to do a quick review of using functions in Excel, it's always an equal sign followed by the name of the function, followed by, in parentheses, some information that Excel needs. For this introduction, the information Excel needs is the location of the data. Location of data. Okay, so that's generally how these functions work. Okay, so you'll see for each of these measures of center, mean, median, mode, mid-range, I have two columns, and one is labeled with outlier, and the other one is labeled without outlier. Now, I'm not going to formally define outlier just yet. That's going to come a few videos down the road. But for right now, let's just consider this term outlier to be a number that's really far away from most of the other numbers in the set. Right? So it's like a weird value, of a value that's far away from the rest. And if you look at this set right now, it looks like that one house that's $2.2 million, that is very different from the rest of the set. Okay, so let's call that for now an outlier. So let's calculate the mean with that outlier, like with that 12th house, all 12 houses. What is the mean of all 12? And then let's recalculate without that 12th house, because we're not interested in the house that costs $2.2 million, right? Our budget is $500,000. So let's calculate the mean with and without. Okay, so our Excel function for mean is average. So we'll type in equal average. And then the location of the data, well, all of the data, those house prices, are in locations A1, which is this first cell, through A12, which is this cell. So we'll do A1. Remember, colon means through, or up, starting with A1 and up to A12. So we'll use colon A12. So I'm telling Excel that in this cell, I want this to equal the average of all of the numbers located in cells A1 through A12. Okay, so there's $513,000, or $513,750, and $513,750. Now let's take out the outlier. So now let's recalculate the average house price, or appraised value, of just the first 11, because those are the ones that are within our price range. So we'll say equal average, and now we'll just go A1 through A11. And you'll see that is a little more than $150,000 difference. Okay, so in the previous, on sheet 1, I said the average price is $525,000. It turns out in this example it was $513,000. Either way, it's over your budget. But that $513,000 is not very representative of this set. The mean without the outlier, that 360, well, now if the real estate agent said, yeah, let's take a look. There's 12 houses for sale. One of them is a huge mansion. But the other 11 has an average price of $360,000. Well, now you go back to the question, do you want to see these houses? Well, now the answer is yes. Right? Probably yes. Right? There's one house that's $2.2 million, but the other 11 are well within our price range, even though the average price of the 12 is over $500,000. If we only look at the first 11, well, that's much. That 360,000 is much more representative of the majority of this set. Okay, so we say the mean, and I'll type it in here under the definition. The mean is strongly affected by outliers. And let's make that bold, and maybe we'll make it red. All right, so the mean is strongly affected by outliers. Right? You see, with and without this outlying value, it's a shift of $150,000. So the average price of all 12 is not very representative of the entire set. Okay, let's move on to median. The median is the middle value. So to calculate the median, now we've gone through the definitions in class, so I'm not going to go do the explanation of what each one of these is. We're just focused on how to calculate them on Excel. So the function for median is, well, it's median. So equal median, parentheses, and the location of the data. So with the outlier, that's A1 through A12. So a median price, or the middle of this list of 12, would be 380,000. And without the outlier, just the first 11 equal median A1 through A11. So you see, there's only a $5,000 difference between the median of all 12 versus the median of just the 11 without the outlier. So we say the median is resistant to outliers. The median is resistant to outliers. And let's put this again in bold red. Okay, because this is important. In statistics, you have to choose, in certain situations, you have to choose a number to represent a set. You have to, know when it's appropriate to use the mean and when it's appropriate to use the median. With house prices, generally we use the median because the median is resistant to outliers. I'm going to pause here on the calculations, and I'm going to head over to this website. So maybe you're familiar with some of these real estate websites, whether it's for researching apartment prices or home buying prices. Either way, there's Redfin, there's Zillow, apartments.com. There's a number of websites that have real estate data. Actually, a very extensive database of real estate data. For this video, I'm using Redfin. I could have used any of them, but I chose to use Redfin. So this link takes us to the data center. There's all kinds of downloadable data. These first couple of graphs are on the number of new listings nationwide, houses for sale. This next graph, which is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 overlapping time series frequency polygons. This is the median sale price. Notice, you're not going to see average sale price or mean sale price anywhere on this website because the mean is strongly affected by outliers. So these real estate websites, when they give their data, they do not use average. They do not use average for the selling price of houses. They use the median because the median is resistant to outliers. And so if you look at this graph, you see, okay, red is national, so nationwide. These are the median sale prices, and it looks like currently we're at about 407,000 for a median sale price. So that means half of all homes sell for above 407,000 and half sell below 407,000. And according to this graph, it may look like Los Angeles is the most expensive city to buy a house in the country, but it's not necessarily true. That's only the half a dozen cities that are listed here. There are definitely cities that are more expensive than any of these, LA. So what I did is I went to this drop-down menu under region, and there are, hundreds of, little towns and cities throughout the country you could add to this graph. What I did was I selected San Francisco, And now you see San Francisco is added to the graph, and now you can see the median sale price of San Francisco well above Los Angeles, which was the highest median sale price, which was default if you just go to the website. And so what this gray graph is saying is that, well, as of August of 2022, that's 1,300,000 or 1.3 million. So half of all houses, including condos, not just whole houses, but condos, houses, everything. Half of every house or condo sold was above 1.3 million. Right, so this is the kind of research you want to do if you're thinking of moving. And if you're thinking of moving to a new city, you want to do a little bit of research on what it costs to live in that city, for example. Okay, the mode. Now this is a tricky one because the mode is the one that there could be multiple values. So I want to just give a note of caution here. The mode function on Excel is a bit more advanced than what I cover in this introductory series. So if there's only one mode, remember mode is a repeated value. If there's only one mode, this function works perfectly fine. The mode function equal mode, and we'll do again A1 through A12, and it's 285,000. You see 285,000 is repeated twice. So there's one here, and there's one somewhere out here. Okay, so mode is repeated value. So the mode is 285. And if we remove the outlier, it still should be the same mode because the mode is the most repeated value. A1 through A11. And we still get 285,000. So I'll just copy this down. The mode. The mode is resistant to outliers. Now, if there are multiple modes, it gets a little bit more complicated in terms of the Excel function. I posted a separate video for multiple modes on our class website. Feel free to take a look at that if you want. It's completely optional. But for these small data sets, maybe for the mode, what I would rather recommend is just putting the data into an ordered array, or just putting it in order from smallest to largest. So I'll go to the home ribbon over here on the right, sort and filter, smallest to largest, and then you could just scan for repeats. And if you just go top to bottom, 285 is the only repeat, so that's the mode. The mid-range, which is rarely used. The mid-range is rarely used in practical statistics or applied statistics. But the mid-range is the average of the smallest and largest values. The average of the smallest and largest values. So there's no built-in function for mid-range. Again, it's very uncommon in practical statistics. So I'll say average of A1, comma, A12. That means nothing in between. If you use a comma, it's just a list. So the average of just two numbers, the number in A1 and the number in A12. If it was a colon, it's everything from A1 up to A12. A comma is just a separated list. Okay, so and that looks about right. 1.2 million, that's about halfway between 285,000 and 2.2 million. So yeah, that's the mid-range. And if we recalculate the mid-range, which would be the average of the 285, the smallest number, and the 440, which is the largest number that's not an outlier. So let's say equal average of the 285, comma, the 440. And when we calculate the mid-range without the outlier, we see again a huge difference, almost $900,000 difference. And one of the reasons why the mid-range is not very commonly used is, again, it is strongly affected. Strongly affected by outliers. The mean and the median are the two most commonly used measures of center. Basically, the mean is the default. You always use, not have to, but generally people use the average unless there's a reason not to. And the reason not to would be if there might be outliers in your data, then you say, okay, well, instead of the mean, I'm going to use the median. Now you may think, like, why do I need Excel? Like, I could have easily done all of this on a calculator, on a handheld calculator. I mean, I have one on my computer right now. I have multiple calculators on my computer right now. I have a nice TI-84. Right, so I could have just put all these numbers in and, you know, added them up and found the average, no problem. Well, in practice, people very, very rarely use data sets that are this small. Very rarely. So I'm going to head over to sheet 3. Now in sheet 3, the table to the left gives the sale price of the last 300 homes that were sold in zip code 01801, which is just north of Boston. What was the average sale price? Okay, well, if you want, pause this video and do this on a calculator. It's going to be time consuming because there's a lot of data to type in. Right? And this is still a relatively small data set. But if we want the average, it doesn't matter if it's 12 numbers or 300 numbers. I'm going to use the Excel function equal average, and I'm just going to highlight the data, A1 to J30. And there you go, 599,273. The larger the data set, the more time it will take you on a calculator. But that doesn't apply to Excel or any other software that's even made for statistics. Again, Excel is not necessarily a statistics program, but it's a program that's very useful for statistics. All right, so that's it for this video. We have the 4 measures of center. We talked about the mean, the median, the mode, and the mid-range. And the last thing I'll do is I'll put on the screen the Excel functions we used. So that was equal, let me go back to my blue pen, equal, average, A1 through A12. Now you could change the A1 to A12 to whatever location is of the data you have on your screen. For median, it was equal median. A1 through A12. For mode, it was equal mode. But again, I'll put an asterisk here because the mode, this function only works if there's only one mode. So just use that with caution. The ones that we are going to be using much more commonly throughout the rest of this semester and this series of videos are the first two, the average and the median functions. And then the mid-range, there's no built-in function to Excel. So we just take the average of the max and the minimum values. Alrighty, that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful.